Hi, Adeline. How you doing? I've got your work up, and let's start with the business card right there. And okay, so we take a look at the business card, and we see that you have elected to use your name as your logo, and that's fine. That's a perfectly valid tactic, and it works all the time. So that's good. And I think it was very smart of you to separate your name by tonal range because it is not an easy name. I'll tell you what though, once you get it down, it rolls right off the tongue. And I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I'm glad you decided to present it like this. This is a good thing. The business card, the front of the business card, I see that you haven't designed the back of the business card, and I'm wondering about that. Is there a reason for that? Also, our book indicates that the best thing still today in 2016, well, at the time the book was written anyways, which was, I believe was very recently at this edition, that the best thing to leave on a business card is still your traditional mailing address, your traditional mailing address, your website, your email, your telephone number, a fax number, and a website or a URL. So I see that you've elected to use a couple of those. I just want to bring that to your attention. That is indicated in the book, and they do require or suggest that it is still the best combination of information to include on the business card, even at the time that book was published. So I see very little information to get a hold of you. And I've seen this happen, Adeline. I just want to pass it along. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying I've seen this happen where a designer, a hiring person, or a designer who is going to sign out freelance work hasn't given it to a designer simply because the contact information has not been readily available enough. I literally watched a designer look at me and say, I was in this designer studio and I was there actually consulting. The designer said, you know what, I think I know who I can sub this work out to, and started looking for a card, found the card and said, all right, come on, where's the website? Where's the email? And took the card and threw it in a garbage can and went to seek another a designer. And that's a true story. And I've seen that happen. So that is just, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I keep saying that. I just think I've seen it happen. I want to talk about the business card and the letterhead as a duo, your dynamic duo, so to speak. And the first thing we notice is that the type treatment and the whole way that you've presented your name is different on the letterhead. Let me zoom in here so we can see. All right. This is completely different than this because of this flourish right here. Okay, so in between the two pieces so far, you've introduced two pieces and you've compromised your branding very early in the process by changing the presentation of the logo. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it's one of the cardinal rules, and that's consistency. I want to take also a couple of comments here on the letterhead. The first thing, the second thing, other than that the logo is different, is that it's the wrong size. You've got it at looks like almost 10.75 by, like 19, or 10.67 by 18.97, and that's not a letterhead size, and that wouldn't be acceptable. Okay, now the other thing I want to mention is these lines that you like. You love to use lines and these things in your design work. And I just want to mention that every time you add something to a page, it adds meaning, okay, or on some other sort of result, okay? Lines going in any direction they tend to lead the eye. I recommend usually that students don't use any kind of lines on their business card because you start looking at it and then you start following this and it's an exit strategy. And these lines right here, they lead you right off the page. Not only that, they box your work in so it can't breathe. It doesn't have any interaction with the outside world. It doesn't have a relationship with infinity. Okay, and then we come over here and we see that as even That phenomenon is advanced even further in a couple of different directions. Number one being that this line right here, again, pulls the eye away from your name. And I don't know if you want that in branding. Okay, we're naturally just following what you want us to follow, and it's away from your name. Okay, the same thing down here with your contact information. This is visually pulling us away from the important information on the page. The lines that you're using to outline, now keep in mind, these all add meaning too. They're leading the eye, and they're also creating shapes. And the shapes they're creating are not very comfortable shapes because they're squares, they're sharp. Each one of these is a sharp little piece right there and there. That's a sharp piece. That's a sharp piece. So basically what you're doing is you're framing your work in with these sharp lines that are converging to create these uncomfortable angles. Okay, and again, I think that's a mistake because you're not allowing your branding to have this relationship with the outside world, or as I like to refer it, this relationship with infinity. Let's take a look at the leave behind piece. Now, the leave behind piece I think can be interesting. I'm really looking forward to seeing this mocked up, but I will say one thing. It's big. It's a big piece. It's 5 by, I think, 10. So 10 inches is a, I guess it's not that big. I guess it's okay. I get depending on how you bind it. But I will say this, though. I will say this. I have a ruler on my desk, and I'm looking at 10 inches. 10 inches is, for a leave behind, I still think it's a little bit on the large side. But the one thing you want to do is take a look at the size of your type and the elements you've placed on a page in relationship to that page itself. This type right here is going to be enormous. I'd like you to print this out. Print it out before you do anything. Not your final print where you get ready to assemble it. Print this out, a couple of pages. You'll see the type is pretty big. Not this page. This page is probably going to have a pretty good type size. These 2 pages here. And this is interesting, the timeline. But is the timeline? Well, I'm sure you'll have it in chronological order. And then we get back to the same phenomenon over here where you're adding these lines. And the lines, yes, you got it. They're taking the eye and they're trying to pull it, doing 2 things. Trying to pull the eye away from your work. Okay? Think of a meteor going through the sky. You start to see the trail. You immediately follow it. And it's the same thing in visual communications. You see a line, you're going to follow it. Okay, so the thing that we see, okay, think about walking your dog down the street. You look down a path. Well, what is 10 out of 10 people see a path in between 2 houses or a alley, and they look down it. Everyone does, and that's the same phenomenon. So you're using that same technique to lead the eye away from your work, but you're also confining your work in this framed in, boxed in little area. Again, doing what? Denying it a relationship with infinity. The type itself, I think it's not a good idea to center align the type. It creates these really symmetrical negative spaces around the type, and that's not the most interesting thing. I recommend using a sans serif to give it a nice fresh crispness, and I would go left align rag right. It'll give it a real clean modern feel, and you won't have this kind of old world, which is fine for Poe, but not for some of the other things. This kind of traditional, kind of stuffy, traditional, chiseled look. Okay, and then the other thing and final comment is that, because I'm over 9 minutes, I'm so sorry, man. I got to keep my eye on that clock. Final comment. Oh, your last 3 pages of the leave behind features almost the exact same work. It's the same style. It's the same genre almost. Okay, I mean, if you see a similarity between Edward Scissorhands and Edgar Allan Poe, I think that there's kind of a darkness there on both sides. And I don't know about this man, but it certainly seems like there's some sort of mystery, sense of mystery there. And it's so you're using the same technique, the same, as opposed to trying to show a little versatility, which is what you would want to do. If you're only leaving 4 pieces, I would make them all completely different from each other. Okay, that's what I got. At least let me end this at 10 minutes. I'm so sorry I took so long. If you have any questions, please feel free. Thanks, Edelyn.